I think we've seen the bulk of the message of I love you letters. This last 2 or 3 chapters is really just more on devotion of philosophy of devotion, more than on the skill of everyday love. And so we saw courage was a huge factor in practicing love, and self-discipline, and a whole vast range of other qualities that we need. Patience with ourselves and with other people, and the ability to accept, which is so much a part of love itself, that we accept the person, which when we accept the person, it includes accepting that they don't like us, which is very hard to do. Hey, it's such an incredible thing of wanting to be liked. There's a few people I've met over the years, and they're really okay with not being liked. And that's a phenomenal, if we could create that vasana to have in our bank, that's really such an incredible thing that really doesn't bother you if somebody else likes you or not. Most of us have such a need to be liked. But it's not, there can be for no reason. Because it's an emotion, and it's a like and it's a dislike, and it's not at all logical. And yet we will ask, why? Why don't they like me? But there's no reason. I mean, they might even be a reason, that you're annoying. And that's not a reason. It's your perception of something. It's not a concrete reason. So much like, what we perceive today as racism. The reason the person's not liked, it will be based on their religion or the color of their skin, or possibly their gender or their gender preference, or age. This is such a, we don't necessarily choose. Definitely our color of skin and age, we don't choose our age. And then somebody doesn't like us on the basis of that. It's not logical, it's not reasonable, it's not sensible, and yet it happens all the time, right? Racism is very much there in people's lives. And so somebody not liking us, there's no reason. And yet we take it so badly. Yeah, so even we not using reason. Yeah. So if we asking why don't they like me? But in the same vein, why do I want to be liked? Why do I care so much? Like, how come we're not asking that question? And I'm talking about myself here. I'm thinking aloud with all of us together. I'm just thinking out aloud. Why don't we ask that question? Why do we ask, why don't they like me? Can't they like me? And I remember once I had a disagreement with someone, and the person took it up to Guruji. And it was such a sweet moment, actually, in my life. Not the disagreement. So Guruji tried to mediate between the two of us, and then he was leaving. And he held my hand and he held the other person's hand. And he looked at her and then looked at me, and pointing to me, looking at her, he said, why don't you just like her? She's so likable. He might have said lovable, likable. I can't remember, but that was like he's pointing at me saying, and if anything can melt your heart, it's Guruji saying, just love her. And it's not so easy, is it? If the other person doesn't, they don't. And why should I insist on it? Like, why am I insisting on it? So this is also a part of love. A part of love is this acceptance of it won't come back. It might come back. And then there's a very strong chance of it won't come back. Okay, so, and this, I'm emphasizing this because it's such an important part of love. So often we go out into the world to give love, totally expecting to get it back or wanting to get it back. There's this underlying, like, I should also get loved. In fact, a lot of times people's motivation to love is so that I get loved back. But this is part of love, the being okay with the not being loved back. Yeah. And again, this was a example I had heard. I'm stretching the example, but I had heard very early days in my study of spirituality, Guruji saying, you don't expect a fruit like an orange to be like an apple. You like, the apple is the apple, and you're fine with the apple being an apple, and the orange is an orange, and you're totally fine with the orange being an orange. And we never expect the orange to be an apple. We just never expect it. But when it comes to people, we totally expect. We expect them to change. We expect them to be like the other person. Why can't you be more like these people who are queuing up to get vaccinated? Why can't you be like more, whatever? Why can't you be more understanding? Why can't you be more loving? Why can't you be more, a better listener? Why can't you just, be nicer? Because we don't know which quality to pick on. So we expect people to be different from what they are. And wanting them to like me is expecting them to be different from what they are. It's wanting the apple to be a banana or a passion fruit or a papaya, and it doesn't work because it just won't work. They will be an apple. And in fact, there's a verse in the Gita that says, Sabha prabhave vartatu. Everything just will function as by its nature. Is it chapter 3? Where Arjuna asked the question, why do we sin? And Krishna says, because everyone acts in accordance with their nature. And you can't stop it. And now in chapter 5, we saw just earlier this week as well, that everything acts as its nature. And in nature, we see it so clearly. Everything just follows its nature. And actually, we see it clearly even with people. Everyone is just their quirky selves, but we still try and no change. And so this acceptance is also a huge part of love. Accepting the other person, accepting not being loved back. It's very liberating. So I do not claim to master it. Definitely, please let everybody love me, please. But I know as a teacher with the kids, so you're not the good guy. Why? Because you're the teacher. The teacher's not and especially when you're teaching teenagers. And we would go on camp to India just about every year. We take about 120 teenagers with us. And so Swamiji, and there was Anukulanandaji, and there was myself. And Swamiji doesn't really scold, if you've met him. You're supposed to understand it's a scolding, but it actually doesn't sound like a scolding at all. It really doesn't. You could totally miss that he's scolding you if you don't know Swamiji. And Anukulananda also didn't scold. He just wouldn't scold. And 120 teenagers. So one day I decided, well, somebody needs to do the scolding in this camp. And since these two are just not going to, I guess it's me. And the minute I decided that, I also knew I was bad cop. I was going to be the one they didn't like. And it was, this is Gurudev's camp. There needs to be some order. These kids also, actually, even though they won't ever admit it, they like order. They like that they have to do the meditation. They like that they have to listen in the class. They like, and sometimes, they don't know how to say no to their friend. But if the bad cop's there, they have an excuse and they can say no to their friend, and then they can pay attention in the class. And so you just, so I thought, okay, this is for the higher good. And there was this, they're not going to like me and I'm going to be bad cop. And it's true. They really didn't like me. And it was quite liberating to not want to be liked. Of course, it's not easy. It's really not easy. There's times when you have to really take a deep breath and center and focus on Gurudev and remember, I'm doing this for the greater good. This is Shreyas, this is Dharma, I can do this. I'm not saying it was easy, but it was very liberating. It was very liberating that I'll just be who I need to be. And if they understand, they understand. And if they don't, that's fine. They're still going to have an amazing camp, which is what matters. And they'll leave this camp loving Gurudev, which is what matters. And in that environment, I could do it because it was surrendering to Gurudev and it was understanding the higher purpose. But if I was just having coffee with someone, like, we don't remember, it's okay that they don't like me. There's a higher purpose. There's, love is about allowing them to be whoever they are. And this is what self-discipline means when Gurudev speaks about self-discipline as being a skill. This is that constant reminder. It's doing what's hard to do. And it's reminding myself that it's whether I'm having coffee with just some random person or whether I'm in a camp wanting to do a good job for Gurudev, to have that same ability to accept that I need to be who I need to be. And it's okay. It's actually okay if they don't like me. Because the liking and disliking has nothing to do with who I am. It's just got to do with their desires in that moment or their prejudices in that moment. So we're continuing now with chapter number 10.
I love you, chapter 10. Charity is the ornament for the hand. Truthfulness is the necklace that decorates the neck. Shastra, scripture, is the adornment for the ears. Then of what use is jewelry? Beloved children, Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om. Namaskaram. The Lord created this world so that his creatures may live in the cohesiveness of the embrace of love. The Lord in our heart is the very center of all love, and hence we express in all our love outside only our love for our own self. The outer world is but an expression of the one self, which is in all Sri Narayana. So long as this deep understanding of God as our own self in us has not risen in us, our love for the world around us cannot be free and universal. It will not have the width, the height, and the depth to accommodate all. When the love in us is not cultivated to its most extravagant dimensions, how can we afford to give love to others? We too shall only be needy beggars crying for love among the endless multitudes of beggars crowding all over the surface of this globe. Without love for God, love for man becomes sentimental, and it can never be a true giving of love. Apparently, we may be giving, but deep down there will be a demand for receiving love. This love for the Lord is of different textures, depending upon the growth and development of the individuals and the society in which they happened to grow up. In the earlier stages, man feels ardently his oneness with the nature around him, even though he has grown out of it as an independent type, evolved out of the levels of the trees and the animals. Yet, in his early stages, man tries to maintain his sense of identity with them, hence his worship of trees and animals. Even now, among the tribal religions, we find this very prominently cultivated. As man grows under the pressures of his needs and the visions of his intellect, he discovers more and more abilities in himself to create things by himself. At this stage, he becomes more and more conscious of himself and his separateness from other things and creatures in the world. It is at this stage that man comes to make his God in stone, wood, or metal. The idol worship starts then. Even here, at the earliest stages of his history, man seems to have worshipped his God as mother. Children always love the mother first. In this divine mother concept, she loves her children just because they are her children and not for any other reason. The divine mother is ever all loving. In whatever we may do, we have only to cry out, Ma, Ma, or Mummy, but once, and she will forgive everything and gather us into her protective, nourishing bosom. From these mother-centered religion slowly move to the father-centered attitude, wherein God comes to be considered as a strict but kindly father. He expects us to obey his laws, to live as his image, to fulfill what he expects of us. If we default in any of his expectations, no doubt he punishes us severely. But if obedient and industrious, humble and productive, then he makes us his successors. In main, almost all the great religions are now at this stage. Yet it must be admitted that the mother concept of God will never leave the world as long as man craves for the mother's unquestioning, all-giving, doting love. Thus, we may say that there was a movement from the matriarchal to the patriarchal religions. Even in the patriarchal religion, as man grew up into a fuller awareness of his own independent and separate existence, and as he explored slowly more and more of his own abilities and capacities, in the consciousness of his fuller stature, his concept of God also changed. From an unrelenting disciplinarian and almighty tyrant, a merciless power that rules man with dictatorial whims, punishing ruthlessly, demanding unquestioning submission to his rule and obedience to his laws, the God concept evolved into a divine power of all mercy, all love, all justice. This shows the growth of the child into its adolescence, and from his adolescent stage of fear of the father, he grows to reach the responsible state of youth, when he becomes mature enough to recognize the reasonableness of his father's authority, the blessings of his rules, and the justice of his laws. He is now able to recognize the anxious, loving, dedicated benefactor in his apparently rude and fierce father. The final stage is when the youthful man grows into full maturity, when the father becomes old and the son comes to feel his intimate identity with his father. Religion at its highest recognizes this noblest relationship between the devotee and the Lord, a relationship of agreement, a sense of supreme nearness. Ultimately, he discovers his total identity with Sri Narayana, the one infinite reality, the self in all. This is not a mere hypothesis, an idle supposition, or an empty theory. According to the type of people that constitute a given community, in any given era of history, these different types of relationships between man and God are found emphasized. This Madhvacharya emphasized that the devotee and the Lord are ever separate, the Dvaita philosophy. Ramanujarya, at yet another period of recent Hinduism, declared that man is not totally different from the Lord, but that he and his Lord have a part and whole relationship. The Lord is the whole, while the devotee is a part of him, the Visit-Dvaita. Adi Sankaracharya insisted that ultimately the devotee, in his essence, is identical with the Supreme, the Advaita philosophy. We can surely say that these three acharyas are not contradicting among themselves. We first cling on to the Father, fearing him, and then as we grow, we learn to feel that we as his children have some rights of our own in our homes. Only when we have grown up fully do we realize that father and children are not separate, but that our interests are even identical. The story of the development of religion and man's concept of God is the natural story of our own slow and steady growth in life. This you all must completely, carefully learn. You must many times independently think over these ideas yourself. As your understanding of your parents become more and more complete, your relationship with them also changes. So too, when our knowledge of the infinite truth deepens, our relationship with God also gets transformed until we discover our total identity with Him, who is the essence in all things and beings. This is the culmination of love, the fulfillment of love. Your sevak or sevika will explain all this to you. You must clear your own doubts by fearlessly asking him or her questions. He or she will explain everything to you. See in your mind the entire logic of this gigantic picture of the history of the growth of religions. Swami Chinmayananda, Uttarkarshi, 20th September 1968.
So Gurudev often portrayed this as a evolution, that we go from Dvaita to Vishishta Dvaita to Advaita. And so as you saw, even in terms of how he did that with bhakti, that, we attach to mother, then father, and then we grow to feel more a sense of friendship or mutualness about the relationship. So in bhakti, that's not necessarily so clear cut. It's not so necessarily such an evolution. Although in life, even we find people don't actually necessarily make that change also, right? Sometimes you can be mothered at even age 60 or fathered. So it's not necessarily, it's not so, what's the word? It doesn't always happen. It could happen. It doesn't always happen. It doesn't happen in that order necessarily. And so many variations, permutations, combinations. Maybe the mother's a tiger mother, and it was the dad that was a little bit softer, and so the child formed a connection with that. Or maybe they like tiger mother. It's not so clear cut. What I'm trying to say is, even though Gurudev made it sound like a nice journey, it's not necessarily the journey of everybody. But I think the sentiment basically is that we grow in our understanding. And I can grow in my understanding and still have a relationship of God being motherly, even though I'm now very mature and independent and capable of doing myself. But that's the sentiment that I connect best with. So it's not that I change, it's just that my appreciation grows of even what a mother does. And so many people will say they only appreciate their parents once they themselves became parents. Until then, you just think your parents are just, background noise, like da, 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 da. And then you get kids, and then suddenly you're calling mom and saying, what do I do when? So in the same way here, it's not necessary that my bhav in bhakti will change. It's just that my depth of understanding of who and what God is deepens and has, it's wider also. I see it more. Because like that same mother can also be very empowering. She's not always doting and pampering the child. That's one mother that dotes and pampers the child. There can be another mother who, takes 2 steps back and watches the child fall over and say, that's how they learn. So it's not necessary that it's always doting. The mother can be empowering. And so my relationship with, in terms of the bhav that I connect with, I will get whatever I need. If I need empowering, if I need nurturing, if I need strengthening, if I need support if I need, which it doesn't matter if I'm saying mother, father, friend. And that's the whole point of bhakti, that this becomes my go-to relationship. And becomes the one that I rely on. The word used is ashrayaha, becomes the place where I feel home. Like home is not so much a place. Home is this feeling. And more often than not, it's with people where we feel home. Is the feeling of home is I'm completely accepted. Even if they don't like me, they've accepted me. They're not going to throw me out. And they're just going to put up with all my quirks. That's really the feeling of home, right? I'm safe here. I can be me because they already know who I am, and I can just be me, and they'll be okay with that. That's the feeling of what we want to establish in our relationship with God in bhakti, that I'm accepted, completely, just totally accepted, and I'm not going to be thrown out. So I might get nagged every now and then because that happens at home. You get nagged. I won't get thrown out. And when I really need them, they'll be there for me. That's the feeling of home. So bhakti is creating this relationship, and we will all feel this no matter which relationship we choose. Because in bhakti, we can have the God is mother, God is father, God is friend, God is beloved, God is child. And we see a lot of people choose that relationship with the Lord because even though the Lord's looking after all of us, I feel very useless. I want to do something. So if God's my child, then, I have to wake up and feed him and dress him and bathe him. And so then I have a job and I feel useful. And of course, he's fine. He's God. But, I'm doing my bit here. He's a kid I'm looking after. And so that bhav also, Yashoda Maya and Kaushalya and all these relationships where we see where they have God as their child. And Yashoda Maya is the cutest of all of them because we have more stories of Krishna and Yashoda Maya than we have of any other relationship with mother and the Lord being the child. Because the minute she started feeling Krishna was God, she'd get very anxious. So the forest is on fire. There's a poisonous snake in the lake. The mountain got lifted. All this didn't bother Yashoda Maya. But when she starts thinking, is my Krishna more than just my Krishna? She'd suddenly get very upset. Like, and Krishna would smile and she'd forget. And she'd once again think, nah, he's just my Krishna. And that's the feeling of bhakti, that I feel he or she is mine. That's the most important ingredient in bhakti. And if it needs to be my child for me to feel it's mine, then God becomes child. Because it's the feeling of mine that's the most important. Yeah. And for a lot of people, child is like too much work. A child is a lot of work. And so feeling of mine comes, it's more romantic when it's beloved. This is my special Valentine coming up. You feel my special someone for Valentine. And so a vast majority of people that's the bhav that they connect with. Yeah. And then, of course, we love being taken care of. And so mother and father, whichever one we just feel more comfortable with. And whatever we need, we get from that relationship. So Gurudev talks about it as a evolution, but the evolution is not stages that you have to go through mother, you have to go through father, you have to go through beloved, you have to, no, that's not. It's just that I just become, the evolution is I become more secure and I become more okay with having to do things by myself. That because I'm secure in this relationship. So if I have to carry part of the relationship, I'm okay to. That's the evolution. It's not that the relationship as such changes in the sentiment, but it changes in the stillness and peacefulness of our minds. So Gurudev also spoke about this journey of going from Dvaita to Vishishta Advaita to Advaita. And so here, yeah, we all follow Gurudev. And so what he says is truth. Yeah. But Dvaitins might not agree with Gurudev, just letting y'all know. Like, I agree with Gurudev, 100%. I'm his Shishya. I will not contradict. But Dvaitins might not like what he said, that they the lowest of the evolution. They might be like, excuse me. Because who wants to be the kindergarten of spirituality, right? Like, of course, the one I'm doing is PhD, we the top tier. So, if it works for a person, the feeling of evolution, it might be pampering ego to some extent, because, look how evolved you are now ready for Advaita. And that may not be such a good thing to pamper the ego so much. Mhm. Might be a good thing to just think like, hey, all paths lead to the same goal. Yeah. And when we study Bhakti Shastras like Bhagavatam, then you'll see these incredibly wise, learned rishis. Like they've studied as many PhDs as you can possibly study in terms of language and philosophy. And then they opt for, I'm just going to serve Bhagwan. I'm just going to sit here and observe him and see how beautiful he is and, listen to his leelas. And then I don't want all this Advaita business. And then these people have, it's not that they ignorant. It's not like they came out for some village and don't know Advaita and can't split all the Sandhi in the Sanskrit. They can. I mean, actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is your perfect example of that. He was Pandit. He was top tier Sanskrit Pandit. He had studied all Upanishads. People came to him to ask him questions and he refused to answer. He refused to answer any Sanskrit and philosophy questions. And he would tell them to sing Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And these people were like pulling their hair out. But we want to understand the Sanskrit now. There's no other teacher. You understand it? No. He just refused to. And so it's not necessarily, and I think this is important for us as spiritual seekers to really, because sometimes when we say one is better than the other, we start to judge. And like I said, ego comes into us, that we the smarter ones. So we follow Advaita, and those dumb ones, they do the kirtan and bhajan. This becomes the biggest obstacle for a spiritual seeker. Such pride and vanity becomes like it's worse. Please go and sing bhajans. You're better off. So Advaita is this belief that the Lord is separate and will always remain separate. And for a lot of us, we function from that point of view, because as long as we are in this world, under the influence of Maya, we really do feel very helpless and very, forget Maya. Carrie Lam makes one, changes her mind overnight while sleeping, and then we all helpless. Have to follow all the rules. Helpless to Maya, never mind, you're helpless to so many things. So never mind even politicians like Carrie Lam, some accident on the freeway and you desperately need to go somewhere. Now there's a 7-car pileup and the traffic's not moving. Helpless, right? It's not like, and in those moments we feel very small. So many times in our lives we'll feel small. Dvaita. Dvaita is, I can really be one insignificant part of nothing. And then, but there's this whole cosmos. And how can I even fathom the creator of this entire cosmos? Like, actually, how can I fathom? And then me be that creator? Whoa. It's like, let's take 2 steps back here. I can't make coffee. You want me to be creator of universe? So Dvaita is our default setting. And then we socialized to be Dvaitins. We actually socialized from kindergarten. That, there's this amazing higher power that makes the sun shine and the grass green. And then that's not me. Who teaches Advaita to kindergarten kids? It would be a disaster. So we get socialized into Dvaita. So Dvaita is default setting. And it's very clear. Dvaita is very clear cut. Yeah. I have to do my small little job. God does everything else. So it's simple. It really works. Vishishta Advaita, I start to realize I'm a dot in this whole incredible universe, and I have to play my part. I have to vibrate at the right frequency with the other dots around me, otherwise it will cause chaos. I'll disturb the pattern. So then I start to vibrate at the same frequency at the other dots around me, and there's some kind of harmoniousness. I have to play my role, and however small it is, it's significant. Yeah. So I remember we did a play a couple of years ago, and we trained the cast, we trained the makeup artist, and we forgot to train the people who put the props on and off the stage. That was a nightmare. Like, those dudes dressed in black that are moving things around are very important. So however small my role is, it's important. I matter in the greater scheme of things. I contribute. And without me, it's not complete. So turn up and do well. So there's this whole like, whoa, it's so big, I can't fathom. Then we turn up, we do well. It's still very big. I still can't fathom, but at least I'm turning up and I'm doing my bit and I'm doing it well. Vishishta Advaita. Very few people get to Advaita. We all listen to Advaita, but very few people get to seeing the oneness in all things. We want to see the oneness in all things. We're looking really carefully, but we don't necessarily see the oneness in all things. To be totally Advaita is zero fear of death, because you'd see oneness with death also. It's an ideal we definitely inspire towards. And so here the point is love. How do I love? As Dvaita, it's easy to love. There's another person, love. This other person's amazing. love. In Vishishta Advaita, it's pretty much more of the same thing. Yeah. Just that I feel I can contribute in some way. Even if it's just smiling at strangers on the road as I walk past, even though they can't see the smile because we're wearing a mask now, but I'm smiling. So we're contributing. So we love. And in Advaita, well, that's why Advaita is so beautiful. That's why Gurudev did such a great sales pitch for Advaita. Who do we love the most? Ourselves. We'd like to think we love so and so, but we love ourselves. Yeah. And so if I see everyone else as an extension of myself, I'd actually love everyone equally and with such calmness and depth, and it would be so unconditional, right? So we get older and our skin gets wrinklier. We don't stop loving our skin. We don't. Yeah, no, we don't. Vanity will make us feel, oh, I used to look nicer, but we don't stop loving our skin. Get older, hair gets whiter. We don't stop loving our hair. No, we don't. We still love ourselves. We might miss what we looked like when we were younger, but we still love ourselves. And then, if some scar comes, you may not want the scar there, but now it's you. So now you love it. So, do we try to improve? For sure. But in the Advaitic sense, there is nothing to improve. Everything is perfect as it is. Why? Because there's only me. Yeah. And so that love is it's a very still, very calm kind of love. Whereas when we love another person, there's this little bit like, are they going to reject me? Do they like me now? Did I do something wrong? There's a little bit more, and that's bhakti. Bhakti really does have that ups and the downs and the ups and the downs. And I'm so in love, and then I can't feel anything. So, whereas Advaita has bhakti. Advaita definitely has bhakti, but it's not a roller coaster. It's the kind of love where you sit with the person and you don't have to talk. You can just be, they be, and you're just happy being with them. No. There's this fullness. So a lot of people don't like that. They like the entertainment of the highs and the lows and the feeling special. But the feeling special means you'll get rejected. Then you have to be accepting of the rejections. So, which one's better? So much of spirituality, people will ask which one's better. In the Gita, Arjuna asks, is karma better than jnana? Which one's better? And then later on, he asked, should I worship God with a form, without a form? Which one's better? Then people will come, and which mantra is better? Which God's better? Whether it's Shiva or Krishna and within one religion, or whether it's, Jesus or Krishna, which one's better? Like, which one should I hold on to? There's really no better. It's just what works for me. For my personality type, which one works? And then there's this, it's almost like it brings out the best in you when you do what's good, what's suited for you. So everything has a charm. So if we go back to the apple has its charm, the orange has its charm, and the charm of the apple doesn't compare to the charm of the orange. But there's no better. They just are what it is. So here too, we have to just forget that there's a better. If Dvaita works for me, then embrace it wholeheartedly. Will it change? Maybe. Maybe not. But there's so many great saints and sages who were Dvaitins, who attained, either darshan or enlightenment or whatever it is that they wanted. And Advaitins, there's plenty great masters, and they attained, and their lives are so inspiring. So it's not a matter of better or worse. It's just a matter of fitting. Like that whole square peg, then you find a square hole. Round peg, you find a round hole. And this is one of the most beautiful things about Hinduism, is that the variety is given and the options are given. And so really choose and enjoy. It's also one of the downfalls of Hinduism. Because options are given, people don't know what to choose. They get confused. And I don't know which God should I pray to. Who's my Ishta Devata? Am I Dvaitin, Advaitin? And so Gurudev would have said, if he was here, toss a coin. If you can't figure it out between Krishna and Shiva, who's your Ishta Devata, just toss a coin. And then when it comes to Krishna, you were like, no, now, And if you're like, really, Krishna? Yeah, Krishna? Go for it. We waste too much energy. Because I heard somebody say this even about marriage. If you think about it, you'll never get married. Don't think too much. Just marry. I was like, wow. But the more I see life, I think it's true. Don't think too much. Then it might end badly. It's okay. That's also what was meant to happen. And you'll learn and you'll grow. And you'll get to the point where everything is as it's meant to be. If you look at a scene in nature, it's not perfect. No scene in nature is ever perfect. There'll be some broken tree. There'll be some, rotting plant. There'll be some animal that killed some other animal. Because food cycle, right? Somebody is going to die. Lots of things get killed in the food cycle. And yet, when we look at nature, we say it's beautiful. Then sometimes if you look at these trees, some parasite is growing on that tree. So for that poor tree, it's got something sucking the life out of it. And we looking, thinking, it's so beautiful. The tree is thinking, no, it's not. It's sucking my nutrients. And why can't we do that with our lives? Things have gone really badly. It's okay. It's what makes us beautiful. It works. It's that acceptance of whatever it is that we have to go through. So this is love. What is? It's okay. They might break my heart. It's okay. It might end miserably. It's okay. Why? because love itself will give me the strength to get through it. This I say with conviction. Whatever difficulties I myself have had to go through in life, it was love that gave me the strength to get through it. But the love caused the pain. Yeah, maybe. It was the love sometimes that caused the pain because I wanted so much. But it was also love that made me go through it. If I chose to focus on love, if I chose to focus on the pain, miserable. But every time I went back to choosing to focus on the love, I would have the strength to get through it. I would have the strength to keep going. I would have the strength to find what I need to do next. So we can wallow in the pain. We do. To some extent, all of us will little bit wallow in the pain. Part of the journey, I guess. And then we remind ourselves to come back to love. So here, it's love for God. But I've still brought it back. No, I didn't talk so much about devotion. Next class, I'll talk more about devotion. And actually, there's only 2 more letters left, and they're both quite short letters. Okay, any questions? Just to clarify, I did not disagree with Gurudev. What Gurudev said is absolutely right. Yes. Questions?
So like how in the Gita, it's like there's no one path. Like sometimes it's bhakti, but in bhakti there is gyan, there is karma. In gyan, there is bhakti, there is even this, there is a little bit of everything. Or if you're Advaita, that's just.
Advaita is a lot about understanding. And so that's why I said the bhakti of Advaita is a little bit different. In Advaita, your bhakti is not Shri Krishna. In Advaita, your bhakti is to Brahman and oneness. And the only person you will have bhakti to in Advaita is Guru. Because Guru gives you this knowledge. Otherwise, it's Brahman.
But there's love.
There's love, there's always love. Nothing can happen without love. I said this first class. If we don't have love, we die. Literally. If you stop loving this moment, you literally will drop dead. I'm not being comical or exaggerating or anything. This is a truth. We cannot live without love. Nothing in creation can exist without love. It's our nature. Valentine's Day becomes weird then, right? What you're celebrating, your nature. We should have Happiness Day. We should have Dharma Day. Why only one person you're going out with on Valentine? It's your nature. You should be by yourself meditating. Yeah. Finding oneness with all of creation. Why wasting time with one person? Anyways, we in lockdown. Nobody can go out. You please meditate. Valentine, meditate. We should start a new trend. That's why I said very few people actually practice Advaita in the truest sense. Few few. Gurudev actually was. Gurudev actually was an Advaita. But very few. Um, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschet Kabhag Bhave Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om